You know, this episode we got a lot of starship porn, and I know all the Trekkies' hearts were singing, as was mine, admittedly. But I have to say, I'm a little bit upset we didn't get any NX-01 love in there. No Star Trek Enterprise fan service. Come on, come on! Hello interwebs, I hope you are all doing well because I am here to review the 6th episode of Star Trek Picard Season 3, this one titled The Bounty. Yes, we are in the first part of the latter half of the season. I'm sure that made sense somehow. Anyways, I'll stay spoiler-free up front and then we'll get into spoilers for the episode in the back. But staying spoiler-free, I have to say this is probably my least favorite episode of the season so far. And I'm not just saying that because I didn't get my Star Trek Enterprise fan service as an NX-01 Captain Archer gal. I was deeply, deeply hurt. But no, this episode was not bad by any means, but it was definitely my least favorite in the sense that this episode kind of epitomizes my issue with the TV season structure of a season of a TV show being equated to a movie, with like the pace and the blockbuster stakes that comes with that. And this season has certainly been better about this than other seasons of Picard and Discovery, but I still feel it, and that is issues with the pacing. This episode felt much more like it was kind of trying to elongate things, extending conflicts a little bit longer than I think they were needed to, and kind of like sputtering its wheels just a little bit in a lot of different areas. Not so badly that I felt it like I did in like seasons 3 or 4 of Star Trek Discovery, or definitely in season 2 of Star Trek Picard, but there is that sort of pacing issue that I'm like, I wish this was moving a little bit faster than it is. Like maybe there's one unnecessary episode in the season of 10. It wasn't the worst in that aspect, but I was certainly feeling it, especially since this episode was also very much a moving pieces into places, like moving the pieces around the board episode, as well as giving us a lot of exposition for what I presume will be the latter half of the season. So just this episode was just kind of more like moving things around, kind of getting things in place, and every season of a TV show needs that, but that does kind of make for a little bit of a weaker episode. That being said, there is still some strong stuff here. We get finally, this isn't a spoiler, he's literally in like all the marketing materials for the episode. We get Jordy back this episode. It was great to see him, and there's some really wonderful moments with him, as well as I really loved this episode's theme, which was parenthood and what we pass on to our children, and are our children the best of us, the worst of us, or some mixture of both, as well as how kids connect to their parents. And I thought that was a really strong tie throughout the entirety of this thing, and I think it worked actually really, really well. So between all of those things, I will say that this episode was definitely my least favorite so far, but still decently strong and enough in it that it kept me engaged throughout, even though I was feeling a little bit more like, all right, let's get this moving than I have in other episodes of this season. That all being said, let's get into spoilers, because there's a lot to talk about here. Though sadly, not Star Trek Enterprise references. Anyway, spoilers. Alright, we're going to go through this episode beat by beat, and we're going to start off with probably my strongest evidence for my criticisms that I had in the spoiler-free section, and that has to do with Vadic. We have Vadic showing up and being very upset because she's unable to find where the Titan is, and she's sort of working with all these Starfleet ships, and this raised a couple different questions for me, this scene. Number one, all these Starfleet ships are working with Vadic, so everyone on those ships knows that Vadic's ship is there, which has me wondering, is everyone on those ships changelings? Are the captains changelings? Just have me questioning the logistics of that. That's not that big a deal. The bigger deal for me, and I mentioned this in previous reviews, is the fact that Vadic is very much isolated and on her own. Amanda Plummer is great as Vadic, and yet she's just kind of here expositing to these cliquey monster people that work for her. And I just want her to have people to bounce off of that are more interesting than them, than these just like drone characters. And that does get fixed by the end of the episode, so I will sort of pass on that a little bit from here. But it was just something a little bit frustrating to see that in episode 6, she's still in this place as a character, when I really do enjoy her performance. Couple other things too is these cliquey monster people that she works for are implied in this episode to be also other changelings. And so I'm like, again, why are they not communicating via the Great Link? And maybe that'll be answered. Maybe there is some hints there, because she does say like, oh, you're misshapen, misformed people. And so I'm sort of wondering like, oh, maybe they are stuck stuck in this shape. Maybe something from the virus at the end of Deep Space Nine has caused these changelings to change form, and hence why they can like manipulate humanoid bodies and not be detected, but maybe it's caused them other problems as well, and that's why she's angry. We kind of get hints of that, where she's sort of yelling about like, we will find unity again. So some little hints at her ideology, but I kind of want a little bit more at this point in the series, and I do have questions around what their structure is and why they're working certain ways that I feel like at this point I should have a little bit more answers to. One other thing too is one of the other changelings kills another one for speaking up against Vadic, which is interesting to me because one of the big things with the changelings in Deep Space Nine is they don't kill each other. Odo in that show got into big trouble with the Great Link because he killed one other changeling, and yet here it's done a little bit casually. And so I'm wondering if that's just signals a big shift in the ideology of these particular changelings, that they're willing to kill each other much more, I don't want to say flippantly, but a little bit more so than they would have otherwise. So really kind of interesting questions here, but something I want to be pushing forward a little bit more, though hopefully what happens at the end of the episode will help to push that forward a little bit. That being said, we do jump over to learning that Jack has Irumodic syndrome. That's what's supposedly been causing his violent tendencies the past few episodes. Now, I'm pretty sure there's probably more to it than that, but we don't get many more answers this episode than that. But he has inherited Jean-Luc Picard's Irumodic syndrome. I did wonder for a second, like, did Beverly tell Jack first? Because if she's telling Picard first, it's like, that's a breach of medical ethics, like telling someone your medical history without them consulting that person first. But apparently she told Jack first, so I guess it's hopefully okay. But anyways, Jack seems to be upset, obviously, at learning this. I mean, anyone who learns they have a disease like this does have that sort of grieving process, emotional process that they go through. But I like that it ties into the thematics of the episode, because this episode really is about Jack trying to reject Picard as his father, the fact that Picard is his parent, and Picard trying to make that connection to him, but Jack not wanting to reach out. And it sort of creates this theme of what do we get from our parents, and Jack only sees the flaws that he gets from Picard, the Irumodic syndrome, and the fact that Picard never cared for him and that he was an isolated man. So I like that sort of starts off Jack's arc in this episode. We do get Raffi and Worf arriving finally on the Titan, connecting those plots, and they sort of give the exposition that we learned the past few episodes, that the Daystrom Institute, the station, has something stolen on it that the Vadic was trying to hide, so they need to go there and defeat this AI, and they're able to get past it now. So they explain all of that stuff. One thing I will note here, I love the reunion of Worf with everybody and Beverly giving him a hug. We got a brief couple awkward moments between Seven and Raffi, implying that they broke up. Like Worf sort of saying, I was lying, I don't want to be in an awkward breakup situation. I thought that was funny. But again, I hope we get a little bit more between Seven and Raffi. We had so much back and forth with these two characters between season 1 and 2 of Picard, and I'm fine with them not being together, but especially since they were one of the few romances of the show, and also one of Star Trek's, at least at the time, queer romances. I really hope that we are given a little bit more justice than just a few one-off jokes. I hope they have an earnest conversation together at some point. I'm not going to blame them. There's a lot going on in terms of moving things around in this episode, so I'm okay if we don't get it here, but hopefully we will get it in the next few episodes. This all leads to them going to the Daystrom Station, and I like that Riker has constantly, at odds with Worf the entire time, being like, you're supposed to needle me. Are you not, going to, have a back and forth, and Worf just being like, I'm over that, bro. I've grown. I've matured. Haven't you seen a Riker being, come on, where's my bro? And where's my bro?
They look like dresses. That is an incredibly outmoded and sexist attitude. Surprised at you. Besides, you look good in a dress.
And so I thought that was an interesting, little fun dynamic to add to those two. I wonder if it'll grow into anything bigger, if it was just a little offbeat. Either way, I think it works fine. When they get on the Daystrom Institute and the, computer's yelling at them, I was like, Worf, hurry the damn up. The computer's getting very angry. Do not hear the angry voice AI lady. But then we get an interesting moment here on the station, and I have to admit that I was a little bit disappointed at how some of this played out and some of the surprises here, but I will be fully just open and say that is on me and my expectations that I placed onto what I was hoping to see here when it came to the trailers that we gotten. And that is the reveal that Moriarty is on this Daystrom Station. When I saw Moriarty arrive, I was like, oh my god, he's the AI, because that would make sense, because if anyone remembers, the Moriarty that we met in Next Generation, who had gained sentience, at the end of that series, he was still locked away in his own holodeck program, thinking that he had escaped the Enterprise, when really he hadn't. And that was one storyline that I actually really wanted to see get completed at some way, shape, or form, whether it be in Star Trek Picard or a novel. Like, I wanted some conclusion to Moriarty as a character. So when I saw in the trailers that they released that Moriarty was coming back, I'm like, oh yes, this is gonna be so cool. He has a right to be pissed off at Picard. I'm excited to see how this character's get some resolution this season, like we possibly had with Ro last episode. So I was really hoping for the same thing here. Turns out, though, the Moriarty we see here is actually not the Moriarty that we came to know, but one that was created by, as we soon learn, the actual AI of the station, which is a form of Data and other Soon-type androids, which we'll talk about in a second. And I like the reveal of that with Riker sort of figuring out the song in the images from Encounter at Farpoint, where Riker first met Data in the premiere episode of The Next Generation. I thought the reveal was good and the song was good, and I thought it was a cool way to get into that, and that this Moriarty was Data's remembrance of the Moriarty that he had wanted to beat. He always dreamed of that. But I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed because I was hoping that there'd be some resolution for the TNG version of Moriarty, especially if they were going through the trouble of bringing him back. That being said, like I said, that is my expectation. That is what the trailer gave me as an expectation. That's not necessarily a fault of the show or the writers. But I can't help but feeling a little bit let down, and also feeling like if you're going to go through the trouble of bringing back the Moriarty actor, that you're leaving a little bit of potential on the table for him just to have a fun little cameo. It's a little fan service cameo moment. I'm like, there was more you could have done with him. I get that there's a lot going on, so you probably didn't have the time, but there's a part of me that will still be a little bit disappointed. Not the show's fault, but there you go. I have to be honest as a reviewer. I don't blame the writers. I blame marketing. Anywho, this does get us to the Data Soon-type android, like I said, and we learn that Soon from Season 1 of Star Trek Picard, the one of numerous Soons that Brent Spiner has played, decided to make a kind of offspring that was an amalgamation of all the different Soon-types androids. Lal, B4, Lore, Data, I think there were some other ones in there too that we've seen. So this version of Brent Spiner, and also get the explanation why Brent Spiner looks old. He doesn't have to do this de-aging stuff, which, good for him. But I like this conceptually because it fits in again to this idea of parenthood and what we pass on to our kids. Do our kids become something greater than we are? We get our flaws, yes, but also our strengths, our better selves as well. And that's how we pass things on to the next generation. So I liked how this idea of this version of Data, for lack of a better name, is like that theme embodied. I thought that was really cool. I like that as a concept. We'll come back to their storyline in a minute because we do jump over to the Titan, which has been discovered. As we learn later, all the starships are in sync. I'm not entirely sure how this works. It's like all the starships are in sync, so they can't be on the run for too long because other starships will be able to find them because of the algorithm, AI, automated stuff going on in the background here. So they do that, they learn that, and so they jump to the Fleet Museum where Jordy is, and we get to see LeVar Burton back as Jordy, and we also get LeVar Burton's actual real-life daughter playing his daughter here in Sydney LaForge's sister. So it was great. I didn't catch the character's name off the top of my head, but it was great to see her here and getting to see Jordy be a parent. Though I will say, I want to know who the mom is. Please, for the love of God, please, 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 do not be Leah Brahms. Please don't tell me Jordy married Leah Brahms. Let it be someone else. But I am curious who the mom actually is. I wonder if we'll meet her at some point. I guess it would make the most sense it was Leah Brahms, but I hope not. Because I liked his arc having been that he had to come to accept that he wasn't going to be with her in the next generation. Anywho, we kind of get a discussion here with Jordy kind of being concerned as a parent for his kids. I mean, like, look, this is life and death, and I can't really help you. There's too much going on with, like, I'm trying to deal with the Starfleet Fleet Museum. You'll get me in trouble. I have a family to take care of. And there's an element of me of feeling this is a little bit spinning its wheels in terms of, like, creating a conflict between Jordy and Picard so that things will take a little bit longer to sort of elongate the episode. So there felt a little bit of a forced conflict feel to this to me, but it works a little bit for me in the sense that it does sort of give Jordy a different character dynamic that we've seen him. We've never seen him be a parent. So this makes sense that he would be kind of an overprotective parent. And I like that Sydney sort of pushes back at him when he says, like, I'm not going to help. I'm going to take you and go to protect you. And she's like, this is my family. this is my crew. And I like that it builds off sort of the crew dynamic that we've been seeing in the past few episodes. I wish we had gotten to know a little bit more of Sydney's fellow crew members, like the bald Vulcan girl, who I think is really cool. So I wish we had a little bit more characteristics of them. It reminds me a little bit of Star Trek Discovery Season 1, where we didn't know a lot of the main bridge crew. That being said, I like that she says, no, this is my crew, this is my family. I can take these risks. You don't get to control me and my life. And it's a parent learning to let go and letting their kid be the best of themselves. But I also like that Sydney said, like, I was always crashing my ship because I wanted to connect with you. You always thought I was trying to run away from you, but I was trying to learn from you, connect with you. And it's about how parents and kids don't always connect with each other, just like Jack and Picard don't always connect with each other. So it just becomes a really interesting rumination on how parents and kids don't always connect in the way they expect to or want to, especially from parents to kids, and the over-controllingness of parents sometimes and the desire to protect them. So I thought all of that was just really cool stuff to see with Jordy, even if it did feel a little bit like elongating the conflict a little bit to keep the story going. However, we do get a really fun sequence where Jack sort of is looking at the Fleet Museum and he sees all the different ships. Now, I was upset that I didn't see an extra one, but this is a bit of a fan servicey moment for sure. But come on, it's Starship porn. Us Trekkies love our Starship porn. I'm not going to get anyone upset about Starship porn Easter eggs. So we get the New Jersey, the U.S.S. Jersey, which just looks like a Constitution class ship. The Enterprise A, which was sexy as all hell. The Defiant, which was also sexy. The second Defiant. We also get to see the Voyager, and I loved 7 of 9 reminiscing about Voyager and how she feels like she doesn't have a family anymore. That was just a sweet moment. And I love Jack having a flyby poetic observance, as 7 puts it. I thought that was great, and sort of her saying that you are your father's child. He does the same exact thing. I thought that was very sweet and a nice little way for Jack to start to realize he has a connection to Picard, that he is in some ways gotten some of the better parts of Picard, not just the flaws like Ironic Syndrome symbolizes. So I thought that was a really wonderful and beautiful scene. But then we get what the title of the episode comes from, The Bounty, which is the HMS Bounty from Star Trek IV, the Klingon ship that Kirk and crew stole and got away with, and Jack gets the idea to steal the cloak with Sydney. And I love that he's kind of hitting on Sydney and LaForge. It would be kind of funny if Picard and LaForge's children got together. That'd be kind of cute. I think that'd be fun. But of course, Jordy doesn't want that at all. Also, by the way, I forget, speaking of Easter eggs, we did get a few Easter eggs on the Daystrom Institute as well. We got the Genesis device from Star Trek II. We got a attack tribble. But interestingly, we got Captain Kirk's body, presumably? There was they walked by one of the stations and we see an image on there that says Captain Kirk, and it has like a scan of his body on there. Now, here's my thought. Is that just his dead body from Star Trek Generations and they just have it there like they also have Picard's body, and so that was just a little hint at what Vadic actually stole, because we learned later on that Vadic stole Picard's body. So I was like, oh, maybe that's just a hint towards that and this is where they keep famous Starfleet bodies? Or maybe it's a hint that Kirk is still alive. And we might get a William Shatner or Paul Wesley cameo, or it might lead into something that Star Trek Strange New Worlds is doing, considering that Paul Wesley is appearing in that show as Kirk. So I'm like, is that teasing something else that's coming later this season or in another show? Interesting to see. But it also could just be they have Kirk's dead body there from Generations, because they also had Picard's dead body as well. So who knows? But it was a fun little Easter egg there. It has me asking questions, which is always cool. And even if they don't answer it in the show, I'm sure some novelist will pick up on it at some point. But going from there, we do have Jordy deciding to help them after he sees his daughter sort of standing up for him, and he decides to fix the Bounty's, the cloaking device, after he says, oh, great, I'm going to get in trouble too anyways, might as well go and help. So he's on board now, and they go and rescue the crew on Daystrom, except for Riker gets stuck behind. He has to stay on the station. He gets caught by Vadic. And I like that after this, after they all escape, Worf decides to go and try to save Riker. So we'll probably get that in the next few episodes. Capture him back from Vadic. I also really liked, I forgot to mention earlier, I love Shaw geeking out over Jordy. I thought that was adorable. Again, I love Shaw so much. So I just loved him having a little bit of a nerd moment. It was very endearing. I loved it. But then this leads us to the scene on the ship where Jack sort of talks to Picard and says, you know, I got some of the good things from you as well. Sort of resolving that arc. I thought that was very sweet. But then we get this meeting with Data, and this is the role that Brent Spiner has been practicing his whole life for. I mean, you could swing a bat and hit a Soon in a Star Star Trek series. Brent Spiner has played so many Soons, even several within this series, but throughout numerous Star Trek series, going all the way back to, I think, season 2 or 3, where he played 3 different characters in a single episode of Next Generation. So he has always wanted to play all the different roles in one, and he nails it. Like him switching between Data and Lore and a B4, and those moments, like he gets it spot on. Like I saw those impressions when he was Lore, I'm like, oh yeah. So we're getting sort of an interesting amalgamation of these different versions of the Soon type androids. But I love that Data's first word is not Picard or anything. His first word is Jordy, because they were best friends and they love each other so much. And I just love that Jada and Jordy get a moment together because they were besties. As much as I do love the Data Picard relationship that we got in the TNG movies, really the true relationship that Data had was with Jordy. They were the bestest friends in the Next Generation. So I would love that he says Jordy first. That was super sweet. But then he reveals that the thing that was stolen from Daystrom Station, as I said, was Picard's body. Now, I have a quick theory about this. As we saw at the beginning of the episode, Vadic is yelling about Unity, wants to connect with the fellow changelings. Now, maybe I've been wondering why they haven't been speaking through the Great Link. Maybe they are unable to link with each other, unable to connect with each other. And we've been hearing hints throughout the season and reminders throughout the season that Picard is a former Borg. We got the Borg Best of Both Worlds opening of the season with his captain's log from that episode. We had Shaw talking about Picard being a former ex-Borg, being Locutus. And so I'm wondering if the reason that Vadic stole Picard's body is she wants to do something with the Borg, because then they'll able to use Borg tech to connect the changelings again and join a Great Link. That would be very interesting. Changeling Borg? Oh, I'm here for that. I am here for that. That's my guess. That's a complete and utter guess. But just so everyone knows, I have not seen any episodes past this point, so I have no other information. That's just my complete speculation, but that is my speculation. So I'll leave it there for now, but interesting going on with that. But then we end out the episode with Riker with Vadic, which I said hopefully will fix my problem with Vadic kind of being on her own. I'm glad that she's going to have not only Riker to bounce off of, but apparently she has kidnapped Deanna as well. And maybe Kestra. We'll see if Kestra shows up, because I like Kestra. Probably not, because the actress probably aged too much. But at least she will have Riker and Deanna to bounce off, and I think that'll be a very fun pairing to sort of have Vadic bounce around with, because I feel like the dysfunction between Riker and Deanna mixed with Vadic will be an interesting sort of dynamic. So that fixes one of my major criticisms that I've had so far. So moving into the next half of the season, I'm very excited on that front. So to wrap out, I loved the thematics of this episode. I loved elements of this episode, but I will say there was a little bit of things that disappointed me here and there, like Moriarty. Again, that's my own thing, as well as me feeling like the pacing of this episode and the extra exposition and moving things around the board was a little bit long in the tooth. But on the whole, it was not a bad episode, just sort of a lull in a otherwise really strong season so far. So that's my review of The Bounty. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, but beyond all of that, thank you so much, my friends, and I hope you all live long and prosper. We better get a frickin' NX-01 reference at some point this season.